Hammers. Curved claw or straight claw? Curved claw. Straight claw. Oh, I don't care. Give me a hammer. Does it matter if they have curved claws and straight claws? No. People fight about it. People have big arguments about it. To me, it doesn't really matter. There are times when I want a curved claw hammer. There are times when I want a straight claw hammer. Most of the time, I don't care whether it has curved or straight claws. It all has. If I'm pulling nails, depends on what I'm doing. But I'll try. There are so many. If you go to the hammer store, how many times have you ever gone to the store and looked at all and just walked over to the hammer aisle? How many different hammers do they have for sale? Like 30. Why? Because everybody has a preference. There's all kinds of different hammers. Pick the one that you like. The reason I like hammers, my favorite hammers at home usually have some sentimental value. I have hammers that that's the one I just grab. Do I have 10 hammers? Yes. Do I use all of them? At some point I will, yes. But pick the one that you like. Ball peen hammer doesn't have claws on it. It's got a round thing on the other end of it. Some people will tell you all kinds of highly sophisticated reasons why there's a ball on the other end of it. Usually it's just, for me, it's just about making a good dent in something. So, rubber mallet. Why do we use rubber mallets instead of regular hammers? So we don't damage things. So we don't damage the surface. Why do we use sledgehammers? Because we want to break stuff. We like to break stuff. You want to know what my number one fear at strike? Does everybody know what strike is? Carrying the showdown at the end of the run. What's my number one fear at strike? Somebody is going to think that the sledgehammer is the solution. They're going to go get the sledgehammer and bring it out. And what happens when somebody brings a sledgehammer out at strike? Go.
We get way too excited.
Everybody gets excited because they want to break stuff, and then somebody gets hurt. 9 times out of 10. So, when we bring this sledgehammer out of strike, it's usually because Curtis gets to use it. Because everybody gets to swing the brakes on. So, what's the sledgehammers are easy to break. You get an old sledgehammer with a wooden handle in it, it's easy to break because they're just the way they work. One of the great advances in technology, which has happened in the last half a dozen years, is the flexible hammer sledgehammer. What? Go out online, you'll see people using these. It's a hammer, it's a sledgehammer that has a really floppy handle on it that moves in really, it's like, I don't know, it's made out of a spring or rubber or something like that. And what it does is it's a much more efficient, if you're driving stakes in the ground or whatever, if you're good at it and you can hit the thing that you're supposed to be hitting, it takes a lot less energy to operate because the hammer, and you're not transferring the shock back into your arms. So it's much easier on the operator, but it's a very interesting technique to be able to operate the hammer and to be good at it. So, clamps. We love clamps. How many clamps do you need in a scene shop? All of them. How many? Do we have enough in our shop? No. Can you ever have too many clamps? No. I'm kind of exaggerating, but it's amazing how many clamps that I would want. If I could have clamps, it would be many more than I have. So many different varieties, so many different variations on the thing, because your application changes so much from one project to another. Standard C-clamp, it's got a thread on it, it's got a thing on it. I remember making fun of clamps one time when I was a younger man, and there was somebody handed me a clamp, and it cast into the cast iron body of it, it said adjustable. And I was like, that's stupid. Who knows? What kind of clamp isn't adjustable? Ha ha ha, what a bunch of idiots. Then I found out that adjustable was actually the name of the company that made the clamp. I was like, oh, now I feel dumb. They make really good clamps. If you ever find clamps that say cast adjustable on them, just buy them because they don't make them anymore and they're really good clamps. So, a pipe clamp, you get a piece of pipe, you put these two things on, you thread this one on the end, that one slides back and forth, makes a nice clamp. Quick Grip was a brand. This is made, the Quick Grip is now owned by Irwin Tool Company, which is the same company that bought Vice Grip. which actually is not the same company anymore, it was owned by a bunch of investment bankers. They just own the brand. Don't even start on capitalism today. But it's just got you squeeze this part, it squeezes the vent together, and you pull this trigger, and it releases the vent. Very cool tool. Just an overgrown
Clothespin.
Overgrown clothespin. Who said that? I forgot what clothespin was. Tangential story about clothespins you don't need to. Hey, we got all the way through that. Did I run out of time? I feel like I talked really fast. But guess what? There's more. Power tools. Handheld power tools. So, one day at home, I was working on a project, and I got out my cordless drill, and I was drilling holes, and then I got out my other cordless drill, put the screws in, and then I decided I needed another cordless drill, because I needed to drill another drill. So I went over to the tool, and before I knew it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I didn't have all of these out for that one project, but I was like, how many people have more than one cordless drill at their house? Of course you do. How many does the average person have? One. Why does Curtis have so many? Because he's an addict of the pawn shop. And when he goes to the pawn shop and the drill is $40 for the $200 drill, he buys it and brings it home. So I probably have more broken drills at home than the average person has at their house. I have one drill I paid $5 for. I can't make it work, but I took the chuck off of it because I had another drill that the chuck was broken, so I can use the part. Yes.
Why do your batteries say do not charge?
Why do my batteries say do not charge? Because this is the same, the Milwaukee 18-volt platform is the same one we use in the scene shop. And so whenever we have a strike, I bring all my tools from home. But they only get one charge out of my batteries. Don't put my battery on the charger. When it's dead, and I get to take it back home, then I'll recharge it and use it at home. So that's why I say do not charge. It's also a way to identify my stuff. So if I have it out and about with other people's stuff, I can tell which stuff is mine. Mine's usually the beat up old stuff because I bought it at the pawn shop. So, not new. I bought my first cordless drill. I bought in oh my goodness, when did I buy my first cordless drill? It would have been somewhere around 1990. I bought my first cordless drill. And I bought a factory reconditioned drill at Home Depot. That was my first cordless drill. I have not bought a new cordless drill since then. Everything I've owned have been bought used at the pawn shop. Corded versus corded. Some of the information I'm going to talk about here has changed a little bit, and I'll talk about how that changed. I looked at the date on this PowerPoint. I made this in 2023. 2020, in May of 2023, the beginning of the semester of 2023. Is that right?
I thought it was 21, but okay.
Corded tools. Pro, less expensive for decent tools. If you're buying good tools, typically you can buy a good corded saw for less than you can buy a cordless saw. Okay? More powerful. I plug that thing into the wall. As long as there's electricity in that wall, that thing's going to go all day long, and I don't have to worry about a dead battery, ever. And it's going to cut right through that. It's not going to run out of power. It's just going to go. Okay? Con, that's part of I have to have a cord, and I'm always stumbling over the cord. Cordless tools. Cordless tools are amazing. Pro, they go anywhere. Con, expensive, committed to the brand, dead batteries. If you go back to the slide, you'll notice that most of everything that was in that picture was all Milwaukee. The wall drill that was in that picture has since died, so it's not part of the collection anymore. But I can't just pick up a DeWalt drill and put my Milwaukee battery on it. So that's one of the problems with it. And they're expensive. But that's the big thing that has changed recently. The cost of cordless tools, the lithium-ion battery technology has become so prevalent that the batteries are still expensive, but they're not the big cost They're not the part that's the biggest problem anymore. So there are really good cordless tools out there. But you also got to spend the money on them. You can buy cheap crap that's just going to last you for a little bit and be garbage. What's the number one problem that most homeowners have with lithium-ion batteries? Disposal is a problem, but we're making gains, and they're so prolific. I'm optimistic about that problem because lithium-ion batteries are so prevalent today that the world's going to have to find a solution for that, and they will. And there are people that are working on it right now. The number one problem is they have a project, they go to the store, they buy a cordless drill, they carry it home, they use it for 1 day or 2 days or 3 days, and then they put it on the shelf, and when do they get it out again next? Months and months and months and months later, that battery sits there doing nothing for months. And then eventually, whenever they pull it out again, the battery has lost its mind, especially if they bought a cheap tool, the battery has lost its mind and won't take a charge. And so, if you're gonna buy tools, battery powered tools, make sure you're using them. Make sure that battery is getting charged and discharged on a reasonably regular basis, because it will forget how to take a charge. It's not a sentient being. It can't actually forget how to take a charge, but the way the chemicals work in it, they cause it to take a charge and to discharge, stop functioning the way they're supposed to. So, if you're buying cordless tools, make sure you're using the battery. Fair warning, I might cough something up here. Drills. Other name, zoom, river, drill, screw shooter, screw gun, good gun. I call a screw gun, I refer to a screw gun in the scene shop to a cordless drill by many different things. And people always give me a hard time about it, and I just want to punch them in the face because they know what I'm talking about. They're just not listening. They kind of get it, what I'm talking about. It depends on who you're talking to and where you're at. I don't know. The other day I called it, I said screw gun. They're like, no, it's a drill. I'm like, well, the difference between whether it has a screwdriver bit or it has a drill bit in it, it's still the same tool. But we often refer to them as screw guns. So, anyway. Fighting over nitpicky details when it doesn't matter. But at the same time, make sure you know what other people are referring to. When you're working in a shop, common points of communication, common language in communication is important. So make sure you're paying attention to that. And notice we've got one that has a drill on it. When was the last time, or a cord on it? When was the last time I used a drill with a cord on it in our scene shop? It's been a very long time. I'm pretty sure we still have corded drills over there, but it has been a very long time since we've done that.
Probably the last time you drilled into concrete.
No,
Really?
because we have a hammer drill, a cordless hammer drill.
That does it now.
That's the great advance. That's one of the great things about the cordless stuff is that the technology has advanced. So the cordless stuff is really good now. And if you want to think, if you have a chance to go back in time and thank NASA. NASA's the one that is the reason that you have cordless power tools now, because they were working on tools to work on in space, and they said, and some engineer somewhere said, what if we had a really small, really powerful electric motor, and we could use a battery? Oh, that's a great idea. And so they spent billions of taxpayer dollars. I'm exaggerating. I don't know how much they spent, but they spent a lot of money developing this technology of small, really powerful motors. And that's where your cordless technology comes from, because they started doing it there, and people said, oh wow, this is cool. Maybe there's a market for this out here in the civilian population, and that's where I'll be. And it's just gone crazy since then. Drill bits. The most common drill bit out there is the standard twist bit. It looks like a twist bit. Is it actually twisted? No. It starts out as a piece of round wire that they stretch out into a very refined diameter. And they put it in a cool machine that goes back and forth twisting it as it's grinding a groove in it. It's a really cool machine. That's how they make drill bits. They don't actually twist a piece of metal. They cut the groove in there. A lot of different variations on things. What kind of drill bits should you buy? Here's my advice. If you're the average person, go down to Harbor Freight Tools and buy the package, the box of drills, the $29.95 or whatever, somewhere between $15 and $30, and it'll have 29-piece drill bit. all the way from half inch down to 16th inch. Those are the drill bits to buy. Why do you buy those drills from Harbor Freight? Go.
Because they break.
No, because they're cheap. They're inexpensive. The majority of the people out there aren't going to know the difference between a sharp drill bit and a dull drill bit. And if you go buy an expensive drill bit and then you drill crap with it, it's just going to not be sharp very soon. So you might as well buy the inexpensive one that is going to serve you very well. That's what I do. We use drill bits. We don't sharpen. It's very hard for the average person to sharpen a drill bit and have it be as sharp as it was from the machines that they sharpen them with at the factory. And so we buy cheap drill bits, and then when they get dull, we just throw them away. This is what happens. We don't throw them away. We put them in the recycling bin, and then we send them back, and they get made into new drill bits. Hole saws it's just a saw that's made into a circle, and so when you put it in, it spins the saw in a circle, and it cuts holes in things. In the spade bits, these are just a flat piece of metal that has a point on it, and when you spin it, it has a scraper edge on the bottom of it, and it scrapes a hole in wood. What happens if you try and drill metal with these? They hate it. They don't like it at all. They get dull really fast. Never drill metal with spade bits. They're for drilling in wood only. You can also plastic. You can drill holes in plastic. And insert bits. These are just little short screwdriver bits. Notice all the different styles of screwdriver tip here. And they go in a magnetic holder in your drill bit. This is what we use in the seam shop mostly. They're just a little bit longer screwdriver bit has a screwdriver tip all the way into it. Put that in the drill and zoom in. Jigsaw. It has a shoe here that you ride along the surface. It has a saw blade that moves up and down, and you can cut curves and things like that. You cut boards, cut straight lines, cut curves with it. You're going to use this saw whenever you work on your benches. Circular saw. Look, it's a spinning metal of death, or a spinning piece of metal with teeth on it. Put it on there, pull the trigger, saw moves, push it through the material. How many people use a circular saw? Pretty common saw. Yeah. I don't have the picture of my big saw. I bought one of these at the pawn shop. It has a 16.5-inch saw blade on it. It's really cool. It's giant. How many times have I used it? About 3 times. Why do I have it? I went to the scrapyard one day. I sold about $150 some odd worth of scrap, and I went by the pawn shop, and they had one there, and I bought it for $100. It cost me like $10. My scrap money plus $10, and so I was like, "Cool, man! It's like an $800 saw." And I bought it for $160 some. Reciprocating saw. Has a motor in here, a gearbox, it has a blade that sticks out front. It's kind of like a jigsaw, only it's heavier dutier. Use it mostly for demo. Sawzall. I will always call this a Sawzall. That's because the Milwaukee Tool Company built a reciprocating saw, and they called it the Sawzall. So that's what I call them all. It's a pretty common thing. Stanley had built a reciprocating saw before it was a slightly different style. They were kind of the first ones that came out. But it didn't really gain popularity until Milwaukee changed the design of it, put the handle on the back, put the blade on changed how the whole, basically changed the layout of the thing, and made it much easier to use tool, and that's how they dominated the market. There's a lot of companies out here that make these as they're garbage. So if you're looking for one of these, buy a heavy one, because the heavier they are, usually the easier they are to use. They're harder to manage, but they don't vibrate as much, and they actually work more efficiently. Palm sander. 2 different variations. This one uses a square sheet of sandpaper, has a little clamp that you tear this sheet of sandpaper into a smaller size, and you clamp it on there. It vibrates around. This is very much preferred by me. It has a Velcro hook and loop fastener. So the sandpaper has Velcro loops on the back of it, and the sander has hooks on the bottom of it. What's the number one problem with this? The Velcro sander choice. Go. Falls off. Why does it fall off? Because people are stupid. Here's what happens. novice, inexperienced person walks over, picks up the sandpaper, picks up the sander, looks at the bottom of it, sees the Velcro on the bottom, thinks that's the sandpaper. Takes it over, starts trying to sand stuff with the Velcro. What happens to the Velcro when you try to use it as sandpaper? It ruins it. It makes it into stuff that doesn't, the Velcro doesn't stick to anymore. So, I've probably a half a dozen over the last decade or so of having to replace the pad on the bottom of the sander because somebody has tried to use it as sandpaper. So, I even did it one time. Not on purpose. I walked into the tool room, I grabbed the sander off the shelf, I looked at it, had a piece of sandpaper on it. I walked across the shop. As I'm walking across the shop, the sandpaper falls off on the floor. I get over there, I plug the thing in, I start sanding, I'm like, why the hell is this working? I turned out, like, oh. So, somebody had already done it, the sandpaper had fallen, and I was like, I literally, what's going on? I turn up, I see the sandpaper like halfway between me and the tool room. I was pretty offended by myself, so.